I'm Richard Friedman, and welcome to my video cartoon for July 12th, 2025. There are two cartoons in this video, and here's the first one where President Trump is being asked by a reporter if he would sign Lindsey Graham's bipartisan bill that has the support of both Democrats and Republicans in the Senate, if he would sign it, if the bill came out of Congress, passed, and was put on his desk. And basically the bill provides for up to 500% on tariffs for any country that buys energy from Russia in terms of oil, gas, or uranium, or any such products that come from Russia. If they do that, the things that they export here into the United States will be tariffed up to 500%. And that is the bill that has been lingering on in the Senate, where basically the Democrats were gung-ho, you can be sure of that, but the Republicans wanted to hold back because of the situation there where President Trump was really strong about wanting to do business with President Putin in terms of getting a ceasefire in Ukraine, which would lead up to a peace deal. President Trump was really saying that I believe that President Putin wants peace. I believe that. And now we see here with all the bombings of Kiev and the maternity ward and Kharkiv, and then going back to Kiev, it's like he's doing a round robin from Kiev to Kharkiv. And Kiev is the capital, and Kharkiv is a very cultural city, a very big, important city to Ukraine, both up in the northern section there and near Russia, where they've been lobbing in all kinds of missiles, and the drones have been flying over there, dropping stuff. And so that's very, President Trump has had it, and he says basically, quote, no more bullshit from Putin. That's the thrust of President Trump's message. Lindsey Graham here picking it up. And here I want to read you the introduction to the cartoon, and then we'll go ahead with that. Richards, Trump, and Graham in wake of President's, quote, no more bullshit from Putin. Russia and the Russia Sanctions bill. Senator Lindsey Graham responds to President Trump being asked by a reporter if he would sign his bipartisan Russia sanctions bill that had been in the Senate for months. It's been floating around that Senate for months. Again, the Republicans they didn't want to go. They want to keep away They didn't want to go near President Trump with that prospect of that sanctions bill. And so basically, and you saw what happened when the weapons that were sent over there, the interceptor missiles and all that came back from Germany in midstream. Our Secretary of Defense ordered that back. So that's that. I'm going to leave it at that. But that's the scenario. In that scenario, it would be very difficult to go to President Trump and ask him to sign a bill of sanctioning, a sanctions bill against Russia. You know, siphoning off all their whole economy is based on energy. You take away energy, and you know, someone said that, you know, Russia is a gigantic gas station, you know, and someone said that. But in a sense, it rings to a little bit of truth there, because they basically are 70% of their a good percentage of their economy income comes from energy sales, and they sell 70. It goes to India and China are the main people who buy that product from them. Okay, and basically here. The idea here is that this bill that had been in the Senate for months, given the bill would slap up to 500% tariffs on countries buying oil, gas, uranium, and other exports from Russia, mostly purchased by China and India, as I just said, which is basically 3/4 of Moscow's energy business. Given, according to Graham, there is a waiver in the bill to give President Trump more leverage. Well, it's you just take that, you know, that's subject to many interpretations of why there is a waiver in the bill. President Trump insisted on there being levied. He wanted to control the bill. So in a way, the other things that President Trump has done were outside of Congress. This time, it's going through the Congress. The thing like this is because it originated in the Congress, and so President Trump is really stuck with Congress at this point. So the best he can do is say, "I'm going to control the bill if I decide to sign it. If I decide to sign it." So now this is President Trump's answer to that reporter here. Going back to the cartoon now, answer to that reporter who asked him if he'll sign the bill. So here we go. Here goes President Trump here. Here he is. Let's zoom in on him. He's in an angry mode here. I try to draw his anger coming out of what's going on there in Ukraine from President Putin's attacks and stuff. So he goes, "I'm looking at it." He's looking at the bill. "I'm looking at it. The Senate is looking at it like it's going to pass it. It's a tough bill on sanctions. It's an optional bill. It's totally at my option to pass it or terminate it. And I'm looking at it very strongly." Okay, so I'm just going to interpret that. That's not saying let's go get the sanctions, bring that bill to me. He ain't saying that so fast. He's not saying so fast. He's just saying that if I do sign it, I'm going to control it. That's the message I get. But anyway, that's just injected there. Now, here is Lindsey Graham. Now, Lindsey Graham coming to the White House after hearing President Trump talking this way about his change in attitude towards President Putin. And here he is, Lindsey Graham, and he's saying, watching this on video, saying, here he is, here's Lindsey. Thumbs up. And he's saying, "Here's my big chance to talk to Trump about my sanctions bill that's been hanging around like a can of new Coke in a supermarket without the president getting mad at me." So new Coke, if there'd be a can of new Coke in one supermarket in the whole United States that was never sold, still overlooked and still hanging in there, still on the shelf, that would be that bill hanging in there because nobody was looking. It was there for months. The bill was just wandering around. It was just on the shelf, like a new can of, like the new Coke, like a can of new Coke that was never taken down somewhere in the United States in some supermarket. And that was the idea. There's the new Coke, and that's to represent the bill that was just hanging in there in the Congress and going no place until President Trump came out and changed his attitude, and now is receptive to this as he called this strong sanctions bill. He called it, and he's going to control it as if it was his bill. So there you have it. It's his bill by de facto, like the other tariffs in a way. It's just that it went through all the zigzagging, and he can't divorce himself from Congress because Congress initiated it. So he's stuck with Congress, is what it comes down to. So he's going to control it. There you go. So there it is. That was the first part of it. There it is. The second part here is now Lindsey Graham made the decision from hearing President Trump. He's going to go to the Oval Office and speak to President Trump. And here he is in the Oval Office. And I got you here. Here's a young George Washington here. And here is Ben Franklin hanging on the wall there. And here is Thomas Jefferson up there. And here's President Trump's golden ornaments on the far around the fireplace. And here goes the cartoon. Okay. President Trump going, "Lindsey, I like your Russian sanctions bill, 500% tariff. I like your Russian sanctions bills, 500% tariff rate." He likes the 500%. He likes that number. Sounds good. "But it has to be in line with my foreign policy goals." So Lindsey Graham, here's Lindsey responding to that. There he is, right there. And Lindsey's going to respond. Let's get a good shot of Lindsey here. Here he is. And Lindsey, there he is. Okay. And Lindsey's going to respond by saying, Mr. President, I know you are not happy. President Trump said, I'm not happy with Putin. I'm not happy over this. Mr. President, I know you are not happy with Putin. Can you expand on your foreign policy? So President Lindsey's trying to get some insight into how he can work with President Trump on his foreign policy, because he mentioned the foreign policy. So here goes President Trump retorting back here. Here he is. Here's President Trump retorting back. And he's saying, I have different relationships with leaders of countries all over the world, and some who I like could have their tariff reduced to 200% rate. That's if they do business with Russia and buy their energy. Their tariff rate could only be 200% if I like them. And others who I do not like could rise to 900%. So he has the freedom of leverage, as Lindsey Graham would say, to do as he chooses, as if he was initiating these tariffs himself, as he did with the other ones. You know, so it's all de facto. President Trump is in control. Okay, my policy is I want expanded presidential control. Well, that's his policy. My policy is I want expanded presidential control. And there it is. There it is. Okay. Lindsey Graham in the Oval Office with President Trump. Trying to ask President Trump with thumbs up. His thumbs up to the bill, although not committing that he's gung-ho to sign it. Hey, bring that bill to me. I want to sign it immediately. No, he ain't saying that. He's saying, if I sign it, I could terminate it or I go through with it, but I'm going to control it. All right, folks. Thank you for watching my video. God bless you, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.